Hello everyone, you are watching King Paul. I am Wakas Abdullah. Today we are highlighting and shedding some light on the topic, very essential topic, about the Ukraine and Russia war. This war has been happening since the last 15 years, and now there have been some changes into it. We are highlighting some essential factors as well regarding the Putin and Zelensky as well. So we have a great guest today, Mohammed Awais from Paris. Thank you very much, Awais, for joining us once again.
You're welcome, Vikas.
Same goes for the Michael joining us from the Paris for the first time. Thank you so much.
Hey,
So
what's
this
up?
program is a discussion-based program. So we are highlighting some discussion-based things. We make like discussions on the different questions related to the war. So Avas, I'm going to start with you. As an international student, as the student of IR, how you can see the whole. Okay, Avas maybe having some lacking in the internet. So
Okay.
Michael, so I'm going to start with you. How you can see the whole
Vikas इसका
scenario.
नाम मिशेल
Yeah,
Are you going? Or
Michael, go
me?
ahead. Michael, go ahead.
Okay. So as you know, the current war has been going on for 3 years. At first, we thought it was going to be, fairly easy to win it. Europe had a very positive narrative. Everyone gathered, every European leader gathered, and decided on a plan to fix this, to commit to helping Ukraine with weapons, planes, and then, of course, financial help to support the citizens. But now it's been going on for 3 years and uh, over 3 years, and not much has changed. In fact, it's going in favor of Russia, I would say. And the main problem that we have in Europe is that, the US are sort of leaving us, uh, kind of pushing away with NATO, pushing away with Europe. We've seen that Trump has been having a negative, antagonistic narrative towards Europe, towards the way it's been going, doing things with the military, the investments. I don't know how, I'm not going too much into detail for now, but yeah, it's going sort of in the way of Putin right now. So
Okay, I got your point. Avas, Michael actually talking about the grand perspective and ideological or in a different perspective. Actually, he's mentioning Trump as well into this whole scenario.
mhm.
Firstly, the first part where your internet is going to be lacking, I asked you earlier that how you can see the whole war. And secondly, you must be highlighted with some facts, which is mentioned by the Michael about the Trump strategy toward the Ukraine as well.
Well, thank you so much, Vikas. And currently, the situation right now, the war is stuck between different things, stuck between the ideologies that the Europe's integrity and with the Russian dominance. So these two things which are convergent now, and that's why it is dragging the war long and long. So this is the basic issue. It's been I think 3 years the war started, but still it's not going to end in any way due to a lot of things. And like in West, there is a perspective that maybe Putin want that Russian dominance over the Eastern European countries. So there is a Western perspective, which is totally opposite to the Russian perspective. So this is why. So I see there are a lot of ideological differences between the Russia and the West. This is why this lead to the misunderstanding, and this is why the war is still dragging on. There is no still peace, any kind of peace, and Europe is trying to not just negotiate, but also trying to just back Ukraine to gain their lost territorial regions, but it's not gonna be happening. So this is currently the situation. It's between these two things.
As per my perspective, as when the war is going to be started, Trump has not, sorry, The Putin is not been expected that this war is going to be so much exceeded in some years. For example, when the war is going to be started, there is some essential factor, which is actually I read it about the whole scenario, what Putin actually wants and what Putin actually think about it. There is a 3 point. Number 1 point is quickly defeat the Ukraine, because Ukraine is not very much powerful as comparatively the Russia. And the second one, to remove the pro-Western government, because as we can see, the Zelensky has in different meetings with the US presidents, and this is actually somehow directly or indirectly present to be threatened to the Putin's government. And the second point it is to stop the Ukraine from joining the NATO. As you can see, they are the conventional rivals like India and Pakistan. US and the Russia always been pretended with conventional rivals. But all these scenarios are not being in the same path. So that's why actually Putin is moved to the next part. And what are the next part? The next part is must be realized on some point, but which we are being seen right now to keep control and occupy the different territories of the Ukraine. Weaken the Ukraine economically and militarily to put the sanctions or the something like this and show the Russia is in a still power. This point actually make a different questions regarding the Putin personality, which actually I am discussing earlier with Mohammed Awais. So Michael, what do you think about not stopping the war by the Putin is the part of showing the world that Russia still have a power and Putin still having a power to do what he wants to do?
So like you said, Putin also thought at the beginning that he was going to win the war within, what, a week or 3 weeks? I don't know if it's 3 days or 3 weeks, but of course it hasn't gone the way he thought it would. But, you know, there's people in Europe, in Western Europe, we thought that maybe that was a plan. He meant to drag the war longer and longer to, you know, force Europe to spend money, billions, hundreds of billions, and to provide weapons to Ukraine so as to weaken Europe and make it waste money on Ukraine. So maybe that's true, maybe that's not true, I don't know. But that's the theory, because Russia is supposed to be a really strong military power. So it's possible that it could have won the war within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and that it's doing it on purpose, dragging the war longer and longer. So that might be the plan. He also, you know, this madman theory Putin likes to do, to use this madman theory that he says, especially in the beginning, he kept saying, you know, if any country tries to help Ukraine, tries to confront me, I will not hesitate in using the nuclear weapons that I have at my disposal. He's done that for a while, and now he sounds more like he wants to negotiate. We've seen in August and back in February him trying to negotiate with Zelensky, and then in August with Trump, and now it's ongoing still. There's supposed to be meetings between him, Trump, and Zelensky. So his strategy looks to have changed indeed.
Awais?
Michelle, just tell me, what do you think about it? That what I see in Europe is the Western perspective about Putin, that he is nostalgic about the former Soviet
Mhm,
Union, to want that ideological, to on the basis of linguistic domination on Eastern
mhm,
European countries that was part of the former Soviet Union, and that is why there is a kind of insecurity in countries like France and Germany. They are like recently we see
mhm,
the recruitment sessions. They started to recruit the more people
mhm.
in the army. So why
Yeah.
there is a kind of insecurity in these countries? So do you think that Putin assumed the Russia same as it was in past, the bigger picture, the Soviet Union?
Oh yeah, so we know in Western Europe, I can talk about that, that Putin has been pushing for a long time this revision of history, because it is a revision. It's not accurate to say that, Ukraine has always been part of Russia. You know, it goes back to almost over 1,000 years ago with the Kiev Rus. I don't know, Rus Kiev Rus. The foundation of, and then they moved to Moscow, and then it's two people, two distinct people, because they separated, and then yeah, there was conquering that happened. So it's not one people, the unity, genetic, linguistic unity, so much as he's been talking about it. It's sort of a revision of history to push a narrative and to have hegemonic domination over these lands that he may view for personally as having always been part of the Russian Soviet Union, well, the Soviet Union. But this is, I think, in Europe, we know this is not really true. It's just a military narrative to win over Ukraine. And as for the military, you know, like you said, in France, we've been talking. I thought we were going to talk about this later, but we can do this now. We've been talking about enrolling, like you said, people in the military. The I don't know how to say this, but like a big general in France, military general, and then Macron himself talked about enrolling people in the military and about reinstating the military service for the youth. I think that's going to happen. It's been validated, or at least it's still in discussion at the National Assembly, the Parliament. So there is a really a serious discussion around increasing the military power of France, and there's also been an increase, a significant increase in the budget spending by 3%, 3.5%, or something like that, of uh, spending on buying weapons mainly from the US. So yeah, it's pretty significant, and it's been increasingly worrying. Yeah, people talk about the fact that this might be fear mongering by the president and this general, the chief of the army, but some people take it seriously and to mean that there is going to be a war that is going to increasingly affect us in Western Europe.
But the thing it is actually now the Ukraine is becoming the hub for the testing of the weapons from the different countries. They are act like proxies over here because US provide many their new weapons against the Russia, and they are been using all these things. So we are been seeing all these facts that the US used Ukraine against the Russia, and the Russia always been clearing up all these things. What actually been doing right now in the Ukraine. So, Abbas, what do you think about that? Ukraine is somehow using as a proxy against the Russia by the US, because US always been a policy of a strict policy. When it's come to the 9/11, they are being saying the world either with us or with against. And same this thing, they are been asking about all these things. What do you think about?
I'm audible now.
Yeah.
Well, from your question, Vakas, I think remember me like in February 1990, the U.S. Secretary of State at that time, the James Baker, wrote to like the Mikhail Gorbachev. It's not official document any kind of, but there was an unofficial commitment with the European leaders at that time. The Mikhail Gorbachev did that Europe, the NATO will not move an inch eastward. So, but the West declined this narrative, but they don't accept it. Recently, I was talking with the member of the diplomatic mission of the Europe, and I asked this same question to this, and he said this document, any kind of communication between both didn't exist. But obviously, it's not official, but it was unofficial. But there was commitments made by the European leaders at that time that we will not pose a threat to the Russia in future. So I think, if we see specifically from the U.S. angle, U.S. is sitting across the Atlantic. It's too far from the Europe and Ukraine. So strategically, it's not the in favor of the US or against the US. So US will not get any kind of disadvantage from this war. But what US want, that is to just bleed the Russian army. They are getting the opportunity. So they want that the US superiority, US domination after kind of humiliation they face in the Afghanistan war. So they just want, so they initially they see this as an opportunity to revive the American image that lost in the Afghanistan. So that's why they joined this war. They supported a lot in every perspective, so military, so economy, so intelligence sharing. But currently, after the President Trump came into the White House, the strategy totally changed because his narrative and his manifesto was to stop the Ukrainian or Russia war. So this is how the U.S. position changed, and obviously there are some states of U.S. obviously involved in this war, but U.S. don't want to bear the consequences of this war. So they just want the advantages, but they don't want to bear the outcomes of this war.
Actually, the US getting some benefit from the different countries as Russia start their war against the Ukraine. There are many countries that will join the NATO. That's a part. What actually US getting beneficial from this war? They actually don't want to, like, somehow we can say they actually, I personally believe, you must be disagree with my opinion, but actually US don't want to get that this war is going to be end up. Because US, this war is going to be end up, the many countries that the border are being aligned, or Russia sharing border with some other countries, they are getting afraid from the Russia. For example, they are thinking about if Russia invade somehow or starting the war against the Ukraine, maybe after some years, maybe some after we will start war against us. So somehow we are seeing all these policies in a sport of border that Ukraine act like a proxy using by the hands of the America right now in the whole scenarios. Let's, Michael, what do you think about where Europe, the whole Europe, are stand in this whole scenario?
So, like you said, the US initially had a pretty strong position in support of Ukraine. They spent money and sent weapons less than Europe, I think a lot less, like 3 times fewer weapons and investment, financial investments. But it was significant help nonetheless. And since Trump, things have changed. He sounds more like he wants to negotiate. It was this whole thing about his winning the Nobel Peace Prize.
He was angry for that, but he didn't get it.
Yeah. I was rooting for him. I thought he was going to get it. That's weird.
He
No,
get it from the FIFA.
yeah, exactly. That's consolation prize. But now, since the change of narrative and the US is focused on the main adversary, which is China, and their current economic war with the tariffs and potentially military war. That's the future is only to tell. So the war with Ukraine continues being this attrition war where every side of the war is trying to weaken and the other financially, military, use weapons for no reason because nothing changes where they are fighting. It doesn't move one way or another. So it's just an attrition war where it's slow and people are trying to make the other waste money. And Europe has had to adapt to this change of strategy in the US. Trump recently released, the White House released last week their national security strategy, which is a 30-page document where they basically say they're going back to protectionism. They're going back to non-interventionism. Well, they're going to intervene, but only in their own interests, which they did before, but now is going to be more significantly in their own interest, national interest. And it basically says they're going to stop supporting Europe. They want to leave NATO. For a while now, they haven't really been a part of NATO. And there's talk also about the European civilizational erasure, but that's a different story. The entire plan isn't to help Europe with its civilization, but it's to deregulate the economy. So Europe now has another enemy, and a big one, uh, at least the economic enemy, which is the US. So we're in Western Europe, we kind of think now of ourselves as we're alone against Russia, against China, against the US. We have no significant allies anymore. So it's pretty discomforting, you know.
Yeah, I thank you for reminding me. I just read the national security policy by the strategy policy by the United States, and the point where they're highlighting the point of non-intervention. This is actually, we can say, what can say, like, this is the joke of the year. The policy of non-intervention by the year. This is actually, we call it the joke of the year. So, Abbas, what's your analysis on the FIFA Peace Prize and the other thing we are calling about the policy of non-intervention by the US?
Well, they try to impress President Trump to some extent, but he will not stop to even to get after the Nobel Peace Prize. So that was on a lighter note. But as Michelle was talking about the U.S. national security strategy, so a lot of things have been changed after Trump came into office, and he was very clear about stopping the war, not just in Ukraine and Russia, but also in Palestine and the war with Israel. So both of war are still continue, and there is a negative peace still in Palestine and the Israel war. But obviously, we can't say that things have been the dust have been settled down. So according to as Michelle was talking about, we have another opponent now on a economic terms, that is US. So Trump see that okay, Trump want the US to just focus on their national interest, as it was in past the Monroe doctrine that US not intervene in any word on the Eastern Hemisphere and just focus on the Western Hemisphere and just focus on their on issues. So, but obviously, we see after that this not gonna be happen because great powers have interest in every region, and that's why they intervene in every region, and that's why this was the reason that the U.S. Supported Ukraine so much because they want that strategic flexibility, even too far from their geography. So let's see what the future will where the future will go ahead. But currently, the Europe and US is totally standing in front of each other, and the wording used in the US national security strategy, the civilizational erosion. It's a totally long debate, but the point was to Europe should regulate the immigration as
Mhm.
US is now doing. So this was the main point, but obviously the debate will go towards another thing. But yeah, it's very significant to talk about the US role,
Mhm.
but US is just sidelining and just putting itself away from this issue.
Yeah, this is the main question, what I would like to raise right here. Uh, if we can see the policies from the US back to the 2022, 2023, or in a 2021, they are having a sport in a somehow in a military sport. They are giving to the military sport to the Ukraine with a full military sport. But when it's come to the 2024, 2025 right now, or maybe in a 2026, they are concerned about more about the stability, and they are actually trying to like present their footnotes into the Middle Eastern politics or the counter the China policies over here. As we can see into the counterback, Russia has recently signed a agreement with the Kingdom of the Saudi Arabia for the visa exemption. Their citizens are going to be visa free for more be like for 3 months or maybe for the 6 months. So how can you see, Michael, the shift in their policy back to the 2023 or in the right now by the US?
Oh yeah, like we said earlier, there used to be a lot more financial support and military support, even though it was still less than Europe. I know Trump has tried to claim that America has had helped Ukraine more financially. He called, I think, he used the term 200 billion in financial help, but it's not true. There's calculations, there's rhetoric, and Europe has helped Ukraine far more than the US. But like you said, it's for a good reason. Europe is a lot more closer to the Russia. Trump and the US are an entire ocean apart. Well, there is Alaska, but it's insignificant. So, like you said, there's different circumstances now. The situation is much different, and we're talking about from the quoting the document that the White House just released. They're talking about the refugee and the immigrant crisis in Europe, which isn't really a crisis. We can manage it, but it's pushing this phenomenon, which is a really significant phenomenon, is pushing people towards anti-immigrant sentiment. So now, even within Europe, there are people who are opposing this refugee crisis flowing into Europe, even though there haven't been really a huge amount of refugees flowing in, and we don't really see them. But there's refugees coming from the Middle East, Ukraine, and places in Africa. So there's a huge amount of people coming in, and you know, Russia's been doing some interference in Europe, trying to push this narrative that there's too many immigrants coming in, and we're likely going to be extinct as a European civilization, whatever that means. But we have to factor in, it's a real issue. We have to factor in the climate refugees that are going to increasingly come in Europe over the next years and decades. There is going to be a pretty significant crisis that's going to be to need to be tackled. So Europe has many things to deal with now, and we don't really. It's looking pretty bleak, and people have been, for what would you say, maybe a year and a half, people in Europe, Western Europe that I know of, have been saying, regular people have been complaining about how much we help Ukraine. Instead, we should help ourselves and focus on internal policy. So for me, my personal opinion, just looking at this, it looks like we're not going to be able to help Ukraine so much as we used to, because we have so many issues internally, and there's the rise of the far right in all Western European countries. The far right has been installed in Central Europe for a while. So the far right in the Western area doesn't want to help Ukraine. So if that happens, there's not going to be help anymore.
Got your point.
Michelle, don't you think that Europe just stuck between two things? One is their moral commitments to the sovereignty of a country, their territorial integrity, international law, all those things, human rights. And on the second end, they have the energy dependency on Russian and other countries. They have the economic strains they are facing, and obviously the military limitations. So they are just stuck between these things, and that's why the outcomes are not positive. We see from this war, and they are just negotiating in the European capitals, in Brussels, in Paris, somewhere, but they don't even know what to do next. So they are just stuck between these two things. They have to make sure their moral commitments.
So
yeah, you're right.
We actually have our last 5 minutes, so I must.
Oh, sure.
We actually,
I'm
think about must go to the conclusion. So, Michael, I go to you. That what's your take on this? The future consensus.
Yeah, like Yves just said, we don't really know in Europe what we're going to do. It looks like you said, our leaders don't know whether to continue the war, whether to push for negotiations. As for energy, we have since 2022 shifted significantly towards new providers like Algeria. But at the same time, this schism, like you said, we don't know where we're going, because one way we're going, oh yeah, we're going to negotiate, we're going to America, negotiate with Trump and Putin, and the other way, what is it? A month ago, we received in France, at least, everyone received a manual, a handbook on how to behave during wartime. So it looks like they're trying to prepare us to know how to behave safely during wartime. So we don't, even the population doesn't know what the leaders want. So it's unclear what's going to happen next. But my view is it's going to drag on for a while.
Yes, so that's what actually concluding remarks from your side.
Well, we all agree at the end that war is everyone just dragging the war, but two things are very clear that there will be no outright Russian victory in this war because Ukrainians show resistance. It's very clear, and it's debatable what was the reason behind the Western military support and economic support, but at the end, I think there will be any kind of uncomfortable compromises from both, but Russia will not let down their territories what they gain. So I think there could be any kind of long-term ceasefire maybe, and but the issue will not be resolved in the near future.
If Michael, if you want to say one word for this war, what you can say?
Unnecessary.
Abbas, and you.
Yeah, I agree. I'm totally agree with Michelle. It was
Actually,
unnecessary. I don't know
back,
why
Mm,
why it was the necessity of at that time.
yeah, but back to the
yeah.
2022, maybe in Sarela's Ansari class, as you remember, he told us, our professor, that what you are talking about, give one defined word for this war. Na? I said that is a slow poison, and still I am on this word. This is a slow poison for the Russia as well, because the Ukraine
Oh
is
yeah.
a small territory, and they are giving actually by the support of the different countries a tough time to the Russia still right now. So.
Mhm.
From the both side, the lives is matter. A lot of the families loses their beloved ones. Everything is going to be war. The war, we are not supporting the war. So we are actually hoping this war is going to be end, but this is a slow poison for the both countries, especially for the Russia.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us, for your time and shedding some light on the
Thank
some
you.
essential factors.
Mhm.
And thank you so much, Abbas, for once again joining us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,